Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well. Hope you're having a nice day. Hope you're looking after yourselves. At this moment in time, it's our third season, first episode. It's great to be giving you guys another season. We've been, like I said, bringing in new guest speakers as well as newly added segments that you'll experience later on today. But first off, as always, we like to give our guest speakers the opportunity to introduce themselves, and I'd like to hand over to Jess, who's just going to tell us a bit more about herself. So Jess, if you could just let our audience know a bit more about you.
Sure. Thank you for having me so much. I'm Jess. I am a medical student and I've just completed about half of medical school so far, and I'm currently intercalating, which is when you have the option to do another degree about med school, and I'm at the University of Cambridge doing a research master's, and my research is looking at the effects of COVID-19 on child and adolescent mental health and their parents as well, so kind of seeing how family dynamics changed over one of the most craziest periods of our life, basically. I have interest in quite a few things. I encourage current and aspiring medical students to kind of be the best version of themselves. So I run a platform called Progress with Jess. So I do mentoring, personal statement reviews, interview practice, that kind of thing. But I think more of my focus is shifting towards current medical students and just ensuring that they are kind of dipping their toes in everything that they can dip them in whilst at medical school. So I wrote a book on how to relocate abroad to 12 different countries around the world. And I share a lot on my blog about some of the experiences that I've had at medical school, for example, going to Cambridge or publishing a paper and getting experience abroad and things like that. So that's kind of me in a short nutshell. But yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I guess our listeners will definitely know from that wonderful introduction that you're multi-talented. You've written your own book, you've got a blog, you're helping people with their personal statements. So yeah, I think our listeners are in for a treat for today. We after that wonderful introduction, we'll now get into it. So yeah, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Jess, and I'm sure our listeners are glad to know a bit more about you. But we're going to go into, I guess, a bit more about your personal journey with medicine. And I guess our first official question to you is, what inspired you to get into medicine?
Okay, so I think every medic is good at science. That's when they're I think when I was at school, the sciences, chemistry, biology, physics were the lessons where I had the most questions. I was the most focused. I was an all-rounder, as many medics are as well. I liked a lot of things. I did well in a lot of things in my GCSEs. But when it came to narrowing down what would actually make me a little bit excited to go into school, go into lessons, it was the sciences in particular. And also I felt I always had more questions. And the thing is with medicine, there are answers, but they never answer everything. There's always an outlier, or the rule doesn't fit for one person. And a personal reason as well is that my mum was unable to have children, so she had us all through IVF. So I remember learning about that in biology and thinking, oh my gosh, if it wasn't for medicine and science and the technology that goes into all of that, from research to implementation, my parents wouldn't have this great quality of life that they now do have. I do mine myself, by having the 4 children that they didn't think they could have. And it's a different way of improving quality of life. And that's another reason why I love medicine as well. It's not just disease cure, it's sometimes giving people a gift that they couldn't otherwise have without technology or research. And I think what really cemented my decision to go for the course was my gap year. So during my gap year, I didn't get into medicine the first time round. I lacked knowledge and guidance about the application process. I really struggled with all the hurdles you have to jump through, from admissions tests to interviews. I just didn't have enough practice. I didn't know any alumni. It was really difficult because I come from a state school from GCSE to A-level. So when I took my gap year, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try again, but I need to know for sure medicine's for me. And one of the things I didn't do enough was get work experience. And I think when I applied for jobs, I got a job as a healthcare assistant at a hospital, and you are one of the staff. You're not a work experience student on the outside looking in. You're actually on the night shifts, seeing the deaths, seeing the good times. Like it was hard, but I actually enjoyed it so much. Like it matured me in a way that I didn't expect. I made a lot of friends, nurses, doctors, other healthcare assistants, and I learned a lot about the system that I was going to be working in, the good and the bad. And then obviously when I got to the interview, I had a lot more to say. I also did work experience abroad in the Dominican Republic. So I spent 3 weeks in a public, private and community setting. And that was amazing. I realized there were a lot of similarities, but also differences between the healthcare systems. And that, again, we're in a very privileged position to have a lot of things for free. Whereas in that country, there was a huge gap between the private and public healthcare provision. And I just thought, I've been to 2 different countries far away from each other. I still love medicine. I still love healthcare. This has got to be for me. I applied again, a lot more, focused on what I wanted, a lot more. I did my wider reading. I understood what it took to be a doctor. And yeah, at interview, obviously I had loads to say, could go on for ages, but I got offers in the end and I ended up at King's College London.
That is perfect. And it's great to see, I guess, how, first off, you're saying with like all the advancements in medicine, yeah, definitely. Even, I guess, like you said, over the last year, we've seen how, the bringing in of the vaccines has helped, to help curb the pandemic. And yeah, it's great to see, you talking about your more personal journey of how, you didn't necessarily get into medicine straight away, but you took on like a lot of work experience and you built up on all the experience that you had, and you came back again and you did a really good job. And it's great to see that you're doing medicine now and you're enjoying it. And that, I guess, nicely leads on to the next question I was about to ask you, which was literally about, I guess, how can failure be a blessing in disguise? So I know briefly we touched upon it, like with what we just said, but how could, I guess, I know for a lot of people that failure, even for myself, I know sometimes when something doesn't work my way, I get really upset, but how can we see it as like a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, because one thing about failure is it forces you to change, however subtle that change may be. The way I deal with failure is most of the time it's not personal. It just means that at that time, people were better than you. It just meant at that time you weren't the person they were looking for, and that's okay. That's going to happen in life. And I think failure is always a blessing in disguise for me, because it forces you to change or do something different next time, and you're only increasing your chances of success for the next time round. So I know for me, I always get asked, Alina, how do you overcome failure and get over it? And when I was 17, getting rejected from med school, and all my teachers had bigged me up so much, you've got the grades, you're going to be fine. It's not just getting the grades, there are other hurdles to jump through. And I sat back and I reflected. I said, number one, is medicine really what I want to do? Number two, what can I learn from this? Like, where do I think I went wrong? Ask for feedback after interviews, ask other people how they got into medicine and what they think could have been better in your application, and what are you going to do next? And I think all of those things make it a blessing in disguise, because you end that rejection ends up being a redirection. And that was like the quote I lived by during my gap year. Like, if you haven't got what you wanted the first time round, you have an option to try again, or you have an option to take a different route to get there. And for me, it was try again. And I genuinely believe if I got rejected again, I would probably try again or do another degree and hope to go to medicine after. So I think I learned what being resilient truly felt like. And I think there's this mindset called the growth mindset, where you just want to be better. You don't let yourself kind of think, I have to be 100% right and perfect in order to get this thing. I mean, no medic is perfect. No person who gets the job than you, they're not better than you or more perfect than you. They were just better at the time. So yeah, having that growth mindset and thinking, that's been a setback, but now I'm even more hungry to do better, to do different, to do more. And I think that's why it's a blessing in disguise. Yeah.
That's so true. And I know even like you're saying just at the end there, I know one of my dad's famous dad quotes, which I occasionally put on the podcast. He loves to say that, you've had a setback, but it's for a comeback. And I think that's so true with your story and in general. And I know for our question segment, you've prepared a question about the podcast, but literally that's the same thing with the podcast. Now, I'll save that answer for the end. But even with my placement year that I did with university, I previously applied to be one of the vice presidents for our colleges, and I didn't get it. And at the time, I was thinking, oh gosh, like I don't know what I'm going to do afterwards. I wanted to do a year of like work to just get used to the working world, just do have an experience that I could say afterwards, what, I've actually, done like proper work. I've also done my academics, so I can go out and show the world that I've done this. And then afterwards, I was just like, oh gosh, like what am I going to do? Like I didn't get it, sucks. And then it was literally just a couple of like months later, I saw that there was this year-long placement at my university. I applied, I got the job literally on the day. Like I was so surprised because I was literally on the day. My manager called me and she was just like, hi, I know this is like very quick and you didn't probably weren't expecting this, but we want to say like congratulations, like if you want the job, it's yours. And they were super supportive. I even when like I had a summer placement at the same time, so I did a summer placement and then a year one. They said, we're fine to move the year one start to later because we really want to have you on the team. And it was an amazing experience. I loved all the work that we were doing, and I think, like you said there, that it's just so important to be okay with letting things happen and just being like, what, it didn't work out, but what can I learn from this? What can I, move on from this experience? What can I take that was good? What can I take that was even bad? And just move on and be like, these are the lessons that I've learned and this is what I'm going to apply. And I think, like you said, that growth mindset is so key.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you cast your net wide and you keep trying and you keep taking a stab at things, you're only going to increase your chances of catching a fish, hitting a bullseye. So I just think, that's definitely been my method so far, and I've picked up lots of crazy things along the way. Like my CV isn't perfectly medical. I've done like lots of different random things, but it's helped me build my character. And you will realize how resilient and like hungry you get to try new things and be okay with uncertainty as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where, and also, like you said, you never know when all the things that you're doing might pop off. Like, whether it's it's something like you did on the side that you didn't think anything would come of it, but then on your CV, an organization sees like, wow, oh my gosh, you've been like, for example, in your case, you're helping young people with their personal statements and things like that. That's a key thing that whether it's, someone else who's listening to the podcast or yourself, that organizations would see and be really, resilient. Even, we said it in our last season, and it's a key thing that I think people should be doing with interviews, asking afterwards to say, if you didn't get the interview, to be like, hey, excuse me, I just want to know, what did I do wrong? Like, what could I have done better? Is it the experience that needed to improve? Was it my presentation? Especially, I feel like with the world of online Zoom interviews and video calls, because I think, for a lot of people, that's not something that they were used to. I know I'd never done a phone interview, but I know some people have had, but I don't think anyone had really done a video interview, especially young people. So to be thrown into that and be like, yeah, no, there's no in-person interviews. You have to be able to portray yourself in like still the same manner that you would in person. And I think, like you said, it's just learning from those lessons. Like if you didn't get the job, saying thanks for the opportunity. What can I learn from that? What's the, the key things that I can do? And even saying like, oh, like if you can, just let me know if there's any jobs later on. I know there was someone who was on the podcast, Laura, who for season 2, and she said her current job that she's in, she got because she messaged the organization when they didn't even have a job. And she was saying like, hey, I'm really interested in working with you guys. Could you just let me know if like a job pops up? And they said, yeah, we love the work you're doing. She has a page on Instagram all about talking about like for graduates and how to, keep going when we feel like as graduates, there's no jobs for us. And yeah, she was, they saw her Instagram page, they saw her LinkedIn page and said, wow, this is something that we really want to work with you. So yeah, definitely. I agree that that's perfect. And thank you very much for your answer. So yeah, so I know we've been talking a lot about your journey, Jess, with medicine. But now I'd like you to cast yourself back to your younger self, and just think about what advice would you give to your younger self, whether that's with, the application process to university, whether that's with, going to university, anything like that. What's some advice that you would give to yourself?
Oh gosh, I would give a lot of advice to myself. And I bet if someone asked me when I was 30, what would I tell my 23-year-old self, I'd have so much to say as well. But first thing I would say is to, it's hard to phrase because I think when we're in schools, we're encouraged and pushed to have like very, it seems like, in school you're learning all these things, you're going to have an open mind, but actually as we get older we get more and more narrow, and it's like, you get to 17, 18, choose a career, that's it. And I think what I would have said to my younger self is try new things, explore. I mean, luckily I'm doing that now, but just because you're going for medicine doesn't mean you now have to give up English. I love writing essays. It's something that I realized I have a natural affinity for. So why not, capitalize on that? I can do medical essays. I can write a book. I can write a story if I wanted to. So you don't have to give up your hobbies in pursuit of a career. I do banking now. I can't learn anything to do with medicine. I can't dance. I can't do, please, I would say to myself, continue your hobbies, explore things, stay open-minded, and keep trying those things, because it's going to help you. It's going to help build you up, not necessarily narrow you to this polished point where you're just like the perfect doctor or the perfect banker. The other piece of advice I would give myself is to learn from those who've gone to where you want to go. So as like I mentioned, I went to a state school, and I think in terms of connections, I didn't have that many. And I think now social media has blurred those lines. I mean, you could be a 16-year-old trolling on LinkedIn and literally message a consultant with the click of a button. It's really that simple. You may not get a response. That's okay. Like we said, rejection is redirection. Keep trying again. But you can connect with people who have gone to where you want to go. And I think that is the most valuable thing. Having a mentor, having someone who you like their principles, you like their values, you want to have their career, you want to have their home and their business, whatever it is, because you can kind of mold your success off theirs and see how they've gone about doing things. And like I said, they will give you advice that they wish they told themselves, and you're their younger self, probably. So, yeah. And one thing they will let you know is all the times they failed, because nobody's above failure. So I think it's so important to talk to someone who's where you want to be, because you really get this new perspective, like, oh my gosh, they were really at my point once, and they're not lying, they're not just saying that to you to make you feel better. They really were at your point once, and you can learn a lot from them, and it makes your life so much easier. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. Every job you've applied for, somebody's got it. Every degree you've applied for, somebody's done it. Don't try and struggle on your own. Find someone who's done it. Get the tips, get the tricks, forge a relationship with them, and you'll find yourself navigating into spaces so much easier, and actually enjoying the process rather than being really stressed out and struggling to constantly get that result.
No, that's completely true. Even like you were saying there about, like going to mentors, it's so true, because we do sometimes forget that, someone else has been in our footsteps. I think, like you said, definitely at the start, the whole thing of, you being a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old, you don't necessarily have to know your life journey. You don't have to be like, all right, cool, I'm going to do this degree, graduate at this age, go and do a master's or PhD or get a job, by 30, have this. Because yeah, like you said, things happen and life happens. But yeah, I think it's really key, because even like I know for myself, when I was 17, I had no idea what I wanted to do at university. I knew that there were subjects that I liked. Like I loved acting, but I knew that wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to go into as a career. But I knew that, science was something that interested me. And it was only because my physics teacher at the time, he was, so my drama teacher, I guess knew, she was asking everyone like, what do you want to do at uni? And I was just like, I have no idea. And she was close with my physics teacher. She said, could you just like speak to him about like what he could do? And he was just like, what do you like about physics? And I was like, well, I like, I guess, learning about the environment, about sustainability and things like that. And he said, all right, cool. So these are the courses that you could apply for. And there were like loads of courses. And I said, actually doing like environmental sciences, I said, that's perfect, because it's so open. Like I don't have to, come out of it and feel like I have to be a mechanic, or I have to be a mechanical engineer or electronical engineer. I said, I can literally go into any field that I want. I don't even necessarily have to work in a lab. I can work as a consultant with businesses. So I said, this is really good. And he was literally just like, just apply for it. I applied. And like you said, like the idea of rejection from our previous question. I didn't get into my first choice, which was Queen Mary's, but I got into Brunel, and I didn't know much about Brunel. I didn't attend any open days. I didn't know anything about the course. I literally just turned up on the first day. And like 4 years later, it's been like an amazing experience. I've really enjoyed all the friends I made on the course. All my lecturers that were there, they were super supportive. They really made the course really enjoyable. Even like the opportunities that we got. We got to, this was luckily before COVID. So in 2019, we got to go to Tenerife and got to, we got to see dolphins. We got to see whales, and it was like an amazing experience. We got to go to a banana plantation. So we got to do like all these things. And these are things that, I wouldn't necessarily have known or done if I didn't, I guess, allow, I'm not saying that, in life, we just have to just, let life take us wherever it goes, but, be open to those opportunities. If I had told my physics teacher, you know what, I don't want to do that. I'm going to, do what my siblings did, or I'm going to do what, my parents want me to do, then it wouldn't have worked. And I know that was one of the good things that I really liked about my parents, where they were saying like, whatever you want to do, like, feel free to apply to do it, but just be aware of like whatever happens afterwards. So, if you're going to apply to be, I don't know, for example, like an actor, you need to know the amount of work you're going to have to put in. If you want to apply to be a doctor, you need to know all the work you're going to have to put in. Because they were just like, you don't want it to be that, you do your university's degree, you're in your second year, your third year, or you finished and you're just like, I don't like what I did. So yeah, always be open for I guess life to take you wherever it does is definitely key.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you're like I said, school conditions you to always have a plan. And when you're quite ambitious, you've always got the next goal that you're looking towards. What's next? I can't veer off this course. I have a goal. I have to get there. And it's like, no, I think life is going to force you off course. It's going to force you to take the scenic route sometimes, and you're going to take a bit longer to get to certain destinations. No one's journey is the same. And I use social media a lot. I like to share my story on there. And a lot of people do fall into this trap of comparison as well. Context is key. Life is very, very different for different people. We start at different starting lines and we finish at different ending lines. And there's also this part of me that feels like we never actually do finish. Like there isn't a finish line to get. We always want more. That's if you're going for materialistic reasons, right? You've got the house, now what? You've got the car, now what? You've got the family, now what? Whereas kind of related to what you said, advice I would give to my younger self in that respect is do things you care about and be prepared to go off course sometimes to kind of see the scenic route, see what's out there. If something's caught your eye, like try and capitalize on it, try and figure out why you like that. And you use life as a journey of self-discovery and not so much, I need to do this career because my parents will, respect me and so will society. Because if you're not happy and you don't respect yourself, it's really, really pointless. And I think people get to that shocking shift at like 40 and they have that midlife crisis where they want to go to a random country and live there for a year. But yeah.
That's so true. And the amount of, whether it was like when I was at school or like people that I know who are at school who say like they want to be bankers or they want to, go into, like I've joked about it before, like stuff like Bitcoin and stuff, like literally they like, while they see, oh yeah, this person's like making so much money, or this person's like got so many things, or, this person went to my school, they've now started their music career. It's like, I think it's like what you said, that we don't remember the things that they go through. And it's always that mindset of, oh, you see, I don't know, for example, like an Oscar winner, like you might say Denzel Washington, he's got like so many Oscars, he's Oscar nominated, he's like a well-known actor. I want to be like him. But then you also need to bear in mind that there were times when he was getting rejected. I know another one that I love to always talk about is Viola Davis is one where she even says that like she's of the same acting quality of people like Meryl Streep, but she's not seen on that level. And she's like, I've got the the accreditation, she's got the Oscars and all the nominations and awards that she's won to show it, but she's still not seen like that. And it's the fact that, I think, like you said, as especially young people, we have that tendency to feel like, oh, we want to be this person, but we don't know how they got there. And it's like, there's loads of images that show it, like ones where, we see the person at the top of the stairs and we're just like, we want to be that person, but we never know like how many steps or like how many times I had to walk back down and then go back up that it worked. And yeah, I think that's really key to just remember that, you know, we like you said, like life takes you on its own journey, and you just have to be prepared for that. And I think one of the key things, like you were saying about like doing things that you care about and you like, is you have to like think. And I think that's what, I guess, people have said it, and I think that's the same with me, that in times of like when I'm doing my masters, or when it's like my like even with the podcast, when things get like tough, you always have to remember like why you started to do it. And if you feel like, you know, I don't feel good about it, then maybe you need to think about, is this actually what I even want to do? And I know even like one of the best stories that again, my dad loves to share is he was talking about how KFC, that Colonel Sanders literally started KFC when he was 60. And he was like, there's no need for anyone, whether you're a 16-year-old or you're a 30-year-old, to feel like, oh my gosh, like my life's not together. I don't have the house or the family. He was saying that, no, look, like if a guy like Colonel Sanders made KFC when he's 60 and it's still around today and it's still making loads of money and it's living long past, you know, his when he died, that clearly shows that like you can make it at any point in life. You just have to be ready. And you just have to be ready for the moment.
100%. And I think it goes back to that thing about all the different timelines and all the different context. I mean, I cannot compare myself to Jeff Bezos. I mean, I'm a female, I'm Black, I come from a totally different socioeconomic background, a totally different country. And I think when people look at images on social media, they think, I want that. And they don't know why they want that. You know, let's be real, we're doing just fine without a Lamborghini roaring outside our front doors, you know, and you just got to put that into perspective sometimes. And I guarantee you'll live a lot more of a content and happy life, and you will be rich in that respect, because you won't feel like you're constantly needing more. But obviously it's easier said than done. I mean, we live in a social media society, so it is really difficult, but I agree with everything you said.
Thank you. And I think even lastly on the point of like millionaires and billionaires, like there's the thing of, you know, even they say it themselves. Like I think there's like Muhammad Ali was saying that, like, I guess someone asked him like, oh, should I, like, I really like you, should I go into boxing? And he was saying like, no, because he was saying like, you shouldn't go into boxing because I do boxing. Like, you need to know that, like, this is what happens. Like, this is the wear and tear. Even like, I know some like millionaires or billionaires or businessmen say the same thing. They're like, don't go into business because you want to be the next Jeff Bezos, or you want to be the next Bill Gates. You know, go into business because you've got an idea that you're passionate about, or you've got a product that you want to help people with. And they were saying that, like, you just need to change that mindset, because even as a business, there'll be times where, you know, you'll whether you're selling a product or a service, where it won't go your way. Like, it could be like, if you're selling like a product, the product doesn't sell good one month, or, you know, you lose a key partner, and then you're thinking like, what am I going to do? But it's always about remembering, you know, what like I said before, just why you started, what you want to get out of what you're doing, and just keeping to that, and just, you know, keeping that close to you.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely. But yeah, we'll now go on to our next question. So for this question, we're going to start off with our newly added segment, Mic Check. So I know for all our listeners and for our viewers on YouTube, you're probably not used to Mic Check because you haven't heard it before, but no worries. I will let you guys know. It's our newly added segment, which is basically where we're going to put in an interesting fact or an article or a study that's linked to the topic that we're talking about today. So we're going to, I know we've talked a lot about medicine, but we're also going to be talking about, in this question, representation within the medical industry as a whole. Now, before we officially, I guess, ask Jess her question, I just wanted to do our mic check and just say, there'll be 2 articles posted with this, so don't worry. If you want to read them, they'll be on the website. But essentially, these 2 articles are highlighting the idea of a lack of representation, especially when it comes to people from a BAME background or people of color, both in the UK and in the US. Now, the first one is from the NHS providers, and they did a recent survey in 2019 to 2020, looking at, I guess, at higher levels within of boards of directors within the healthcare industry, how many came from a BAME background? And in a survey of about 1,077 directors, only 81 of them came from a BAME background, and they said that similar steps have shown that there's been a lot of, I guess, increase of on a lower level, so lower levels of the healthcare industry, but not necessarily when it comes to the more senior levels. They did say that there's been an increase in senior managers from a BAME background, but they're still saying that there's a lot to be improved. And even there was an interesting article on this website called Edumed, and they were talking about a study that was done by researchers from Stanford and the University of California, and they conducted an experiment where they essentially recruited 1,300 African American men from Oakland, and they offered them $25 to complete a general health survey, and then offered them a free health screening, and then an additional $50. But the experiment part of it was some of these men would be receiving healthcare from Black doctors, and some would be receiving it from non-Black doctors. Now, they said that the interesting thing was they saw that those that saw Black doctors were more likely to get, 56% more likely to get a flu shot, 47% more likely to agree to a diabetes screening, and 72% more likely to accept a cholesterol screening. Now, they're not saying, that non-Black doctors don't provide good care. They even say in the study that actually all the doctors, whether they were Black or not, received equal scores when it came to the quality of care. But they did show that, having a Black doctor or a doctor that's, you can relate to, helps the patients feel more comfortable and more secure with the physician, and enables them to connect. And obviously, in this example, the clear connection was a race, because obviously, as we've said previously on the episode, and you all probably know in your own lives, that having that connection can actually help. So going back to you, Jess, our question for you is, why is representation within the healthcare industry so important?
Yeah, everything you said, I was actually just thinking about something I posted today about Black representation in textbooks. That I met this medical illustrator from Nigeria, and he's been drawing pictures or an anatomy on Black skin, and I was thinking, how is this not in the textbook yet? But honestly, it's important to have representation in the medical field because we serve a very diverse population. And in order to serve that population the best way that you can, you need to have a diverse workforce. And I think when it comes to representation in medicine, it's so subtle, but it really shows in the inequalities that you see in healthcare. So some that you've mentioned already, but even, Black women are 5 times more likely to die during childbirth. The COVID pandemic, why are BAME people so much more likely to die and also be hesitant to get the vaccine, for example? And a lot of my research, for example, is around mental health and obviously children and adolescents, but I've also done a lot of work with the BIP network. So they're the Black and minority ethnics in psychology and psychiatry. And Black men, for example, are the most likely to be detained under the Mental Health Act because they're seen as aggressive and a risk to society. And you think of all these things and you're thinking, where do they originate from? And there isn't one person. It's a general idea of thought, and it's unconscious bias. And I think when you have representation in medicine, you can be tackling this at every step. So if I hear a colleague who might be white saying, oh, I'm not sure about that Black person, they seem like they're on drugs, I can question them there and there. Why do you think that? I'm Black and I would like to know. And it forces people to question themselves and their own prejudices and discrimination, because a lot of the time when we have a lot of the same people, homogenous groups, they don't question each other. They have the same beliefs. They have the same ideas. So having a diverse workforce will obviously benefit the diverse people that you're trying to treat, but it also forces people to change the way they're acting and challenge their thoughts and ideas. Just the same way that, Black people might harbor their own thoughts about white people and Asian people and vice versa. We all have inner prejudice that we and judgment that we exhibit on a day-to-day basis, very, very subconsciously. We need to be challenged on that every day. And the only way you're going to do that is by having a real big mixture of people in a workforce or a setting.
No, that's so true. And even like you were saying, the idea of like within the medical field, I've spoken about the show before, and I'll probably keep doing it until the podcast ends. But like Blackish, as a show, one of the main characters, Rainbow Johnson, is a Black doctor in America, and she talks about like her experiences. So most of her workforce, especially her other doctors within that she works closely with, are all white. So she has to, like you said, like things that she has to check. She can't be seen as the aggressive Black woman in the workplace. She can't be seen as taking not being okay with things, and she talks about herself. They did their most recent season that's just ended, and I think the next season is going to be the last one. They were talking about how, like, I guess during the pandemic, like how she felt, especially as a Black woman with healthcare, with all the things that were going on in America, the murder of George Floyd and other African Americans in America. She was saying like how that made her feel, and I think, like you said, it's that sense of understanding that we as groups tend to like stick to ourselves, and we don't necessarily see issues until like big things happen. So I know even like people were saying, especially when around last year with the murder of George Floyd, that things about race in America hadn't gone since the last time a Black person had been killed, or even in the UK, these things were common. But because, nothing big had happened like that, we were all just like, okay, when it happens, we'll discuss it, there'll be debates, even news like shows will have these discussions with like whether it's activists or politicians or whatever to talk about it. But it's like, no, these are long-standing issues, and they'll only be dealt with long-standing change. So like you were saying, that the idea of representation within health fields is so important and so key. And I think, like you said, until we get that better understanding of having, multicultural teams, understanding also the different cultures within our workspaces, we won't be able to truly, address whether it's issues like racism or sexism or ageism, or the way we treat, people of other genders or other sexual orientations. Until we diversify, we won't get there. And it's just being, having those conversations. But yeah, no, definitely. I think that having more people in the workplace helps to highlight that, and having that multicultural workplace is definitely key. I spoke about it before, that each culture has like certain things that they celebrate, or words. I know especially like being, I wouldn't even say just Nigerian. I wouldn't even say African. I'd say a lot of Black families, certain words have different things. So I know like my mum has said that she's seen like videos where like a child who wasn't Black, went to their parent, was just like, oh, mum, like you're being an idiot or you're being stupid. And it's like, for a person of color, I know, like, if I ever told my parents that, whether I was young or not, like that's incredibly rude. And it's words like that we don't necessarily, like, in English, it might not necessarily mean it, but like in other languages, like calling people that has a serious connotation. And I think, like you said, we're not necessarily saying like, we need to have a complete, like everything needs to change. We're just saying like, bring these people in, have these conversations. There was this really interesting story about I don't know his name, but my brother was telling me about this Black man who was going around America speaking to people who were members of the KKK. And now, for anyone who doesn't know, KKK is a racist group in America that have done a lot of bad, especially towards people of color, but especially towards Black people in America. And he basically was going around talking to people from this group, and he spoke to like one person, and he basically, I guess, made this person see like why the organization was bad, and the person left. And afterwards they were asking him like, what do you think was like beneficial to you? And he said, as a white person, it was just like being able to sit down and talk to him and see things from his point of view. Because I think, like you said, that we I think Macklemore had a song about it, and he perfectly says it there, that we're more concerned with, as a society, with being called racist than we are with tackling racism. And it's a thing of, we need to be aware that whether it's, we say words that are offensive, or words, that we don't know what it means in the other person's culture, or whether it's, we're copying another culture's style or wearing a certain clothes and not necessarily understanding the meaning behind it. It's just having these conversations allow us to think outside our limited box, essentially, and, understand what other cultures are going through.
Agreed.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.